Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Today I'm here with Logan Fullmer. Came up the road just a little bit, 5 hour drive. I guess you flew up from San Antonio.
Yeah.
So he's doing some amazing things. Like, it's always interesting to me, as have been in the real estate space for a long time, that somebody seemingly kind of comes out of nowhere. You've probably been doing this for longer than I know, but came on the scene, has a new technique that's really crushing it right now. And that is going after dirty deeds, basically properties that you think you can't get done, or deals that you think can't get done, or nobody wants to touch because they seem hard, and making more money than the average person by far. So Logan, welcome to the show.
Mike, I appreciate it.
Yeah. How long have you been real estate investing? Because you and I met a few years ago. We've been talking for a while now. We've met a few times before, but when did you get started?
About 10 years ago.
Okay.
So we met about the time I popped up and said, holy cow, there's this internet thing. Let me be a part of that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So tell us more about your background, like how you got into real estate. I know you didn't start there.
No, oil field, went to school, couldn't figure out what I wanted to do like a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Just bounced around, worked for a developer, a realtor, went to the oil field after I'd kind of like gotten rid of all my bad youthful habits, so to speak. But that was a neat place. I got to work. I got to earn a lot of money, self-confidence. All those things really started to grow there. But at some point you say, gosh, like some people have an entrepreneurial mindset and they say there's more than this.
Yeah.
And about 2012, gosh, that was 13 years ago. That's right around the time I bought my first property. Yeah.
Okay.
A little vacant lot, downtown San Antonio, $5,000 with my savings. And from there, just kind of.
And what drove you into that? Like, you thought, like, I want to flip houses, or I want to buy some rentals, or I have no idea what I'm doing, but let me just try this? Or what was kind of the catalyst for you to even think about real estate?
There's a lot there, actually. My dad was a professional. So was my mom. Grandparents were somewhat wealthy farmers up in Iowa area. And I'd inherited a lot of money, like 7 figures in my mid-20s. And at that time, I was, the bad things that kids do were still big parts of my life. And I burned through that money quick, dude. Like 3 years, it was gone.
Yeah.
And it was really sad because, like, I'd spent my share of what my grandparents spent 2 generations building.
Yeah.
But I get out here to the oil field, and I'm actually earning again. And it's taken me over a year to earn 1/10 of what I burned. And I'm like, God, this is going to take a lifetime. Like, this really sucks,
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, let me hoard this money like Scrooge McDuck over there, like just crazy, just hoarding every nickel after I'd pay my taxes and my minimal living expenses. But I remember thinking, how do I get this to grow? And everybody talks about real estate. If you haven't heard about real estate in the United States in this era, your ears are closed. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe that's it. So I'd go to San Antonio. Since I was working in Texas oil field, San Antonio was close every couple of weeks. And back then, San Antonio hadn't really got very big lift. It's the 4th largest city in Texas, 7th largest in the United States, but it would not even be considered a tertiary market back then. And I remember thinking, okay, I can buy these houses, but I got to find a tenant. The taxes are high. It takes a lot of work. I don't know what I'm doing. And I saw all this. You go downtown, the Central Business District, you hop the highway, and there's this east side. And houses are $20,000, lots are $5,000. And I think, there's a sewer underneath the street. There's a paved street. There's curbs and gutters. There's utilities. These lots used to have houses. There's a water meter for $5,000. So my big concern is I lost over $1 million just blowing cash. How am I going to not lose this money? So I'm so worried about downside. And if I'm buying this lot that you could literally build a house on for $5,000, it's probably never going to be worth less than that. So my downside is very protected.
Right.
So I was worried about that. But if it goes up, well, who knows how high it could go, right? Like, we know what happened to a lot of neighborhoods in Dallas and Austin. Mm-hmm. So that was my real premise. So I spent a couple years just dumping all my earnings into this vacant land downtown.
Yep.
And then 2014 hit.
And you were just sitting on the land. You were just banking.
Right. Taxes were only $300 a year on each property. I could afford that. Oil field was good still. 2015 hit. A realtor called me and offered me $200,000 for a lot that I was in for $10,000. And I'm thinking, no way this is real. Sends me the contract, it closes. And that's just a hair less than I'm in this whole portfolio for.
Yeah.
So I'm nearly recapitalized. And then I get laid off a couple months later because oil field's having, just pricing pressure on the oil barrel.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I'm like, what do I do? What next, right? I guess I'm going to do real estate.
Yeah.
And that's really where it started.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, once you see what's possible, because you have all this doubt, like we're conditioned to like, well, somebody else is making a lot of money, but I probably couldn't do that. Or it's like, must be hard. There must be more to the story. Like we're always kind of skeptical. Or
it's kind of human in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're kind of wired to not take risks because it's safe where
self-preservation.
You're at. Yeah. And so, but
we do that with food, we do that with shelter, we do that with a lot of things, not just money.
Yeah. Yeah. But once you see it, you're like, what this is what's possible. Like, how do I do that again? And then so how do I do that 5 times a month, or how do I go from there? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next step was getting involved in a messy deal. And when I started to find that I could sell these lots for 100, 200 grand a piece that I'd bought for 5 and 10 grand, I thought, oh my gosh, now I'm going to take this 200 grand I got and go spend it all on more because I want this upside again.
Right.
The problem is I'm knocking on doors. I'm like, hey, I got 5 grand for that lot. And they're like, no, that's 50. That's 90. I'm like, oh, like I missed, it's over.
Right.
But I remember seeing a bunch of lots that hadn't traded. Like a lot of them were starting to trade off market. So I was seeing deeds in the land records. But I saw a lot of lots that hadn't traded. And the commonality was they were delinquent on taxes and the owner was deceased. And I thought, hold on a minute. So right about that time, I was going to sell one of the lots that I'd bought recently because I was bringing in more cash to start this business. And I'd bought a deed from someone. I got sloppy. I'd been buying these through title companies. It was just a hassle. And this one guy said, I ain't going to a title company. Meet me in my house with 5 grand. I'm like, oh, fuck it. Okay. No title insurance, 5 grand for the deed. That was the one. I know I did it now. There were 8 other owners and they weren't there. So I bought 1/9 of this property for 5 grand, full market value.
Yeah.
But I spent that summer, right before I got laid off, going to an attorney's office, figuring out how to buy the other owner's shares and clear up liens and judgments. And when I got done, I was still in it for maybe 10 or 20 and sold it for $195,000. So when I started piecing that together, saying, hold on a minute, I wonder if I can make these same offers to people that haven't sold because most people can't figure out all this BS.
Right.
And I started intentionally looking at those. And after that, it was, now it's 10 years later. I got 20 people in my office, a lawyer, genealogist, private investigators on retainer. We do a couple hundred transactions a year, but usually between 30 and 40 million in transactional volume annually.
Yep. So these are the dirty deeds, right? These are the things that people, there's nobody leading the charge to basically say, hey, here's how we collectively sell this. They're just kind of dead right now. They're just sitting there.
One of the biggest factors I find is folks are frustrated with family.
Yeah.
And they can't get out of that personal problem. And I don't have any of those connections. So I show up and deal with each person in a silo, and I'm polite and I'm respectful. I can get 90% of the deals done without lawyers, without lawsuits, just being nice to people. And they're willing to sell it because they're not the framing is really important. They're not selling me a property for cheap. They're selling me their interest in the property. I'm taking their seat. So I'm buying their seat for $500 or $1,000. But I remind them, I'm buying your seat at this Thanksgiving table. It's very dysfunctional. And if I can't fix the problems, I get to keep this bad seat for a long time. I hope I can fix them all.
Right.
And when they understand that I'm buying their position, not getting a whole property, it's easier for them to detach the dollars to the value.
Yeah, because they could look and say, well, the tax value is $200,000. It's like, yeah, but you own 1/10, and I have to convince all these other people to play ball as well, and I have to take the burden of the taxes, or somebody's got to take care of all that. About
a year in, I started telling people, being honest. I remember explaining to people, here's how you fix it, and this is what I plan to do. And I would tell them, aggregating interest from everybody, doing a probate or an affidavit of heirship, getting any judgments and liens that Johnny boy didn't pay his child support. We have to deal with that, all those things. This is the roadmap. If you want to do it on your own, feel free. I was honest with people because I knew they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And when I told them the entire roadmap and said, this is what you do, and you will get that 100 grand that it says in the tax rolls, you're welcome to do it. And we can be done on this phone call. I respect that completely. That's your first right. I'm the second place. And when I was honest with people, dude, they don't give a shit. Come get it. You got $1,000, I'll take 1,500.
They just want to be done. Yeah.
Be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about like, are they all like that? Basically, a lot of inherited stuff, a lot of like partial ownership. And then do you have to buy them all out? I mean, do you have to get 100% ownership to make this work?
There is a lot of inheritance, but there's also a lot of like judgments, liens. When people have businesses that go bad, they don't pay their taxes the last few years. You got IRS liens, child support liens. They get sued. I mean, the amount of title defects are countless. There are breaks in the title chain, but where I find them surface many times is the delinquent tax list. When people just can't fix all the problems, they eventually quit paying taxes because they just wrote the thing off.
Yeah.
When that happens and it builds for a few years, that's a very good signal that there's real problems here, not just financial issues, but more than that. So that's a place where I really like to shop. We shop in the land records and the delinquent tax list. That's kind of the main places to shop, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's the character of most of those.
Okay. And do you have to buy 100% of the interest? I've heard of, there's ways around.
That's a smart question, actually. So
I only ask smart questions.
It's the only kind I have. Well, in the beginning, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And you get so busy, focused, thinking one way. I would try to buy all the interest. And if I couldn't get it all, I would file a lawsuit against the other person or file for a partition or go do something. But I realized there were times where I would get involved in some of these lawsuits that would take years and they were expensive and slow. And I remember one point just tapping out saying, fuck it. I don't, hopefully I didn't, can I cuss on here?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. I just remember saying that and thinking, I own 90%, they own 10. This thing's worth a couple $100,000 and I'm all in it for 20 or 30 grand. I already have 170,000 in equity or something like that. They have 20,000. I had 180,000 in equity minus my 30,000 spent. I got 150 in equity. They got 20. I don't even need their share. I remember calling them in the middle of this lawsuit and saying, hey, let's just go sell together. You get your share. I get my share after I get reimbursed for the taxes I paid. And they're like, let's do it. And when that happened, I thought, what have I been doing all these years? Mm-hmm. So when I can aggregate everything politely, calmly, nicely in a swift manner, I do it. If not, I just get enough equity where I'm happy, and the last people say, let's just go sell together. You get your share, I get mine.
You've done all the work, for them.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Sometimes I'll ask them, if it's been a real bad one, I'll ask them for a little bit of a premium off of their side, but not the steep 80% discount that I would normally ask for.
Right. So why do these things? They're hard to do. They're messy. Like, why would you do properties that are this messy?
Because the real estate market is competitive these days, man. YouTube has been out for a long time. Interest rates have been low. Everyone's piled into this business. And originally, I didn't look for these intentionally, but inherently they were enticing because they were low spend. And when you have less money in the beginning, you're either going to take on a lot of debt or you're going to buy low price properties. And I found these weren't low price properties, but they were low spend. So that made it was very efficient for capital at the time.
Yeah.
Over time, I learned these are great returns and I can make as much cleaning up a title as you can flipping 3 houses, but use a itsy bitsy fraction of the capital. So I intentionally picked these. But with interest rates rising, competition going through the roof, and frankly, there's a coaching program to teach you how to do everything in real estate except this. When I call these people, they have never had an offer like mine, ever. And there's no competition whatsoever. Like when a person buys a delinquent tax list, they just skip trace it all and then call. But the numbers that don't work because the owner is dead, those are the ones that I'm actually digging all the way down to find the owners, to find their current locations, the heirs. I'm calling the people that most people miss.
Yeah. Most humans, I guess, like I say real estate investors, but most people are just lazy. Like if I have to do some extra work, I'm just moving on.
Right.
And they just move on to the next one.
But that makes sense. If you can make a lot of money with the low hanging fruit, like why not? That's smart.
Yeah.
And that worked for a long time, but it's getting harder and harder these days.
Yeah. And so are you focused on residential properties or commercial properties or what? Is it just properties that are going to have the biggest potential paydays, or how do you kind of navigate that?
It's really the payday. In the beginning, it was vacant land downtown because that's a kind of honey hole that I found. But over time, I realized I don't care what kind of property it is. An old-timey business guy that's really smart, way wealthier than me, said, there's no bad product, only bad pricing. And I remember thinking about that for a long time. And I realized I'll take a warehouse, I'll take an apartment, I'll take a vacant lot, I'll take a mobile home. I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as I get it cheap enough where I can make a lot of money and resell it, that's it. So if you're shopping by distress channel, not by asset class, that's where you find the deal. Now, like I mentioned earlier to you, I've had people come to me and say, well, I want to build an apartment portfolio. How do I find the delinquent apartments? That's a needle in a haystack. Don't build a business model around it. You might get lucky once, forget it.
Right.
Go find properties that are in extreme distress, buy them, make huge profit margins, and then take that money and go buy what it is that you really want, where you want, when you want, how you want.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So I've got an industrial portfolio. Gosh, well, there's one office in there, mostly industrial. I got some mortgage notes in there. I don't have any houses left. Right now we're about $80,000 a month in net operating income, and that's from that. But that's where the money goes. All this dirty deed stuff goes straight into portfolio.
Right. So your rental portfolio, whatever it is you want to invest in, doesn't have to be that asset class or that. I mean, it's like make your money and spend it over here. Right.
So every once in a while I'll come across a distressed warehouse and I'm really happy for it. But that's just, it doesn't really work. I need a very fair deal that might have a little value add, but I ain't buying warehouses at 50 cents on the dollar very often.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you did only, let's just say I invest in a lot of multifamily. If I only picked the really distressed stuff, like it really limits what's out there. Like if you're willing to pay a fair price for it, it's like I make my money over here and I invest it over there. It doesn't have to be super distressed. It just has to be a good. Because honestly, when you start to buy larger properties and stuff, for presuming you're moving into stuff that you want to cash flow,
exactly,
you don't want distressed problems. You want stuff that's cash flowing.
I don't want that to be a hassle. Like we might have to redo it up front, but I want it to be a B or an A class asset. I want the tenants to pay. I don't want vacancy. Like I don't want to fool with that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of like different case studies of some recent deals you've done, just to give some context for what this looks like.
So let's talk on the small end. The small end would be $100,000 house. And a lot of people look at that and say, I'm only gonna make 20 grand if I flip that. That's not that big a deal. On a $100,000 house, I'm probably making 50 to 70. But that means there's 10 or 15 owed in taxes. I'm buying the owner's shares for 10 or 15,000. And then I'm in it for maybe 30. I'll go sell it at market, 10,000 in sales cost. So 40,000 in total expenses, 100,000 in revenue. That's 60 grand in net profit. That's about where a bottom end deal will be. Okay. If it's less than 50 grand, I won't touch it usually.
And the way you always find these is back taxes.
Well, so we shop in the deed records. We find ownership problems. We find title disputes. We'll find judgments and liens. We'll find lawsuits. The simple answer is get you a delinquent tax list. That's for folks that aren't sophisticated and you're new. Go do that. It's cheap and easy.
Yeah.
We have a little bit more sophisticated systems in total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a low end type case study. And then I know you've done some commercial stuff too. Go ahead.
So I'll tell you about a commercial, but let me tell you, I ran a report, our trailing 100 deals. I ran this in December. Our average purchase price was $48,000. Our average sales price was $194,000. And our average gross margin was about $150,000. Average net margin with $25,000 in average overhead expense per deal was about it became $125,000 in net margin average.
That's awesome. So they're not all $100,000 houses.
They're not. We have big ones that skew the numbers big time. If you looked at our median sales price, it'd be less than $200,000. Our averages really get drug upwards. But we just filed a suit on a 15 property portfolio. Those are houses. We did a commercial portfolio in Houston that was about $3 million. We're in it for about $400,000. Had to pay the family a profit share. We did this as a joint venture. I mean, that deal's got $2 million in net. We did an apartment complex that took 2 years. It was a train wreck, man. And then right before closing, the seller decided to back out. I'd spent 30 grand dealing with all kinds of problems on his behalf. Finally, I said, dude, this went from a dirty deal to a lawsuit. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm suing you tomorrow if you don't close today. He's a jerk, talking all this trash. So I sued him the next day. We went to trial courts on summary judgment, went to the appellate courts. It took 1.5 years. The judge ordered him to sell me the property after the trial court. And because he was such a bad dude and just showed bad faith throughout the lawsuit, we filed a writ of execution to enforce the judgment, meaning he had to give us the property, and he filed an appeal. But we convinced the judge to have him post a $1 million bond. That was the value of the property, and he couldn't post it, so he had to give us the property, and we collected cash flow while he was appealing He then lost, but we paid $1 million for that property, turned around and resold for $2 million right after appeal was over with. So like that would be on the upper end, those ranges. But make no mistake, we're not closing a $3 million deal monthly. Probably something like the $1 million+ deal happens once or twice a quarter, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of it is just having the right people in place. Like you said, you've got a lot of people in your office, but you've got an attorney on staff, a genealogist. So talk about not everybody's going to have that when they start off. But like, how do you play the game well early on if you don't have all those resources?
You know, you can afford those resources. Typically, those resources are not in-house for anybody.
Right.
But early on, I knew that I needed to pay those people because I didn't have the answers. Paying the attorneys, yes, they're $300, $400, $500 an hour. Just pay them, dude. You're going out trying to make $50,000 on a deal. Pay $3,000 legal bill. Like, stop arguing because the dude checked his email and charged you for 7 minutes. Like, just pay it. You need this dude to answer your phone on a Saturday when a seller says yes. So pay his damn bills.
Yeah.
But starting out with those, the attorney is the most important part because you're going to learn from him and he's going to teach you to learn if he's decent. So that's really important. The private investigators are less than $100 an hour. When you get stuck, go pay them. What's more important is your own curiosity than any of that. Because if you don't know the answer and you want to know the answer, you've got to ask yourself, how do I get that? How do I get there? How do I fix this? You just keep asking yourself. And you solve this, and eventually you're there at the pot of the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have those in your office, just call around and get referrals.
Yeah, most don't. You don't need to have those in your office.
No. So to prove that point, the best I ever did in a year was just a little under $1 million, but that was me and one assistant. I was able to get to between $750,000 and $1 million a couple years in a row, and I'm working 7 days a week, me and one assistant, and that's net profit. And I just got smoked. At that point, I'm like, oh my gosh. I had one other person helping me some who became a partner. But at that point, I'm done, dude. I needed to start bringing people in and hiring. But one person with an assistant can do that, especially if you have good training.
Yeah. Most of the stuff happens from, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just from people not having their estate kind of buttoned up before they pass, right? I mean, I've flipped hundreds of houses up here.
You've seen that a lot.
Same thing. Truthfully, there's a lot of times where we've had really messy situations and we're like, let's move on to another one. Like, let's not waste our time with this. But
so here's the kicker: when you run into those situations, you can say, "Okay, I'm going to do all the work because I'm getting a little bit of a discount." That's where the guys like me will diverge from the pack. I'll come back and say, "Look, here's the problem. I'm going to walk you through all that it takes." Like, because I know you've done this. You've rounded up 6 other owners. You got an affidavit of heirships. They had a judgment. You helped figure out how to deal with it. You did all that shit for free, or at least for like a $30,000 wholesale fee.
Yeah.
If you would have come back to him and said, all right, people, can we have a meeting together? Draw it out on the whiteboard, all the people, what you've got to do, what it's going to cost all the time, and say, if you do this, you get the extra money. If not, I'm going to have to take this $90,000 price and cut it in half down to $45,000. That retrade is where most equity is created.
That's our problem is we always made an offer and found out how messy things were afterwards.
And then you retrade.
We didn't usually retrade. We would just be like, well, like, let's try to make it work. Like, we never thought about we need to be compensated for all this effort, right?
That's
or the deal is just like, hey, one guy is, nobody knows where this one uncle is, and they haven't talked to him in 20 years, and nobody knows how to find him, and we're just like, sounds like a lot of work. Screw it. If the title company couldn't figure it out, we usually just move on.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right.
Where were you at, dude?
Right. You know, today we get referrals from local attorneys, judges, title companies, investors, wholesalers, and they say that. We couldn't find Johnny. I've got a private investigator team. They were a field agent and a researcher at the FBI. They've retired. They do private work. If we get to that early on, we would try to go find those people. Today, I just get a contract with the investor, and then I call the bakers and say, hey, try to find this person. Dude, 89% of the time they find them within 3 days.
Wow.
But if you're not thinking like that, you listen to what these people say and you assume that the same condition will happen to you.
Right.
Y'all haven't found him in 20 years. This is going to be a lot of work. It takes me 5 minutes to call the bakers and say, can you get this dude for me, please? Get him on the phone. Where do I need to go to talk to him? 2-3 days later, they call back we had a phone call with him. He's ready to talk at noon. Boom.
Yep.
You just fix that family problem of 20 years for $500, $1,000.
So what advice would you give to people that own a bunch of real estate now? Like, we're talking to real estate investors here. Mm-hmm. They're like, how to make sure that your estate doesn't end up like this.
Ooh, this is a complicated.
Because it's funny, because a lot of times as a real estate investor, you see that happening, but you're not doing the things you need to do to protect yourself from that happening.
This is a really neat topic to talk about. So one of my business partners, CPA, fourth largest firm in the States, career there. I mean, he's done like $100 million transactions up to $500 million estates. And I've gotten to meet a lot of these people in our office over the years. I've come to my own personal conclusion. Don't give your kids a lot of stuff. Give them money and let them figure out what to do with it. Because if you give them a lot of stuff that they don't know what to do with, they're going to end up losing it or going behind or making messes, even if they're sophisticated. But if like my daughter's probably going to end up being a lawyer or an artist. I don't know yet. It's like one way or the other. If she becomes an artist, dude, I ain't handing her a 6 warehouse portfolio for her share. That will be in tax default, and she'll be selling to some dude like me in 3 years. I think when I get to the end, start getting a little bit older, I'm going to modify my estate plan. Currently, my kids are all just equal heirs, or whatever I got, they get. I think we're going to change it. I'm going to start to divest probably in my 70s. Hopefully I don't die early. And I'm just going to give them a pile of cash unless I have some of them that are interested in operating and have it together. Otherwise, y'all just get a pile of cash.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell people to do, because my grandparents gave me a farm. Do you think I give a shit about a farm? And what did I do with that farm in 6 months? Sell it. So just because that place you got out in East Texas is important to you, don't think it's a family heirloom for 6 generations. That might break your heart, but you don't want it to be on the tax list. And my son calling your daughter or son.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah, no doubt.
So for estate planning purposes, do really good paperwork. That's your first thing. And then if you want advice on how to what to do with it, give kids money. Don't give them stuff, dude.
Yeah. We ended up I didn't know we were going to have this conversation today, but we ended up getting all of our stuff put together finally last year. I mean, after years of talking, we had a will that was like 15 years old, and it's like, this is a different world now 15 years later for us,
And you're a different person.
No doubt. And so we just ended up getting a private executor, a corporate executor, somebody that's not in the family, because nobody in our family, it would be a massive burden to take our kind of estate and our assets and all of our real estate mess and say, go figure this out.
Big workout.
Yeah. So not that it won't be hard for somebody else, but we just hired a professional executor that it's like, this is what they do, is they just kind of make
That's
sure.
a wise decision.
Yeah.
That's very wise.
'Cause it's easy. That would be a huge burden for anybody. It's a burden for us to deal with it. So
just because you're interested in doing all that doesn't mean your kid can, will, or want to do any of that.
Right.
Good game. We just talked about our children a little bit ago. Teenagers, they're tough.
Yeah.
What if I hate to say this, but what if you and your wife got hit by a bus this week?
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Me too.
But what if let's ask, what if your kid got all of what you have literally in that manner? This office was still set up. He's still showing up for a paycheck on Tuesday.
Yeah.
What if your kid got all that? Oh my gosh. You better be glad you got that.
It would ruin anybody. Yeah. Yeah. Just the complexity of it. Like in our mind, we make it work, but nobody else would be like, "What the hell am I doing?" That's spaghetti,
I like your idea, the corporate executor, something of that nature.
Yeah, and you got to build a plan of my wife bought this thing called a knock box, which is like next of kin box, but it's basically like it's a filing system, and you're like, hey, it's kind of like if you're reading this, something bad has happened, but it's like, here's where the deeds to our properties are. Here's where the title for our houses, our cars, call this person if this happens.
Cool.
So you just kind of have directions on if you just broke the glass, and you're reading this, this is what you need to do here. This is what you need to do there. So it's kind of a plan.
Dude.
Even for my wife, if something were to happen to me, there's a bunch of stuff that I do that she'd be like, I have no idea what you do there.
You know what? That's really thoughtful. The fact that you
could even be certain businesses here's 3 people that I think would be interested in buying this asset. This thing, just fucking dump it. Just get rid of it, or shut it down. And there's things that you need to sell. There's things that you need to, but you kind of know who some of the buyers are for some of your stuff, who to go to, or who to go to find out who the buyers are, who's a trusted advisor,
The fact that you're thinking about and acting like that tells me that your kids won't be on one of those delinquent tax lists for my kids to be calling.
Hopefully not.
That's so thoughtful.
It took, for me, my mom passed away 2.5 years ago. We had another family member, my wife's aunt passed away a year ago, and we just kind of saw our family dealing with stuff. We're like, man, this, we need to start thinking about our stuff is the most complicated of anybody in our family. And so it's like, we need to make sure that we don't dump this in somebody's lap.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't want to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. You're planning right. That's smart.
Yeah. Yeah. So who is this kind of program that you have where you're teaching people how to do dirty deeds? Like who's a candidate? Is it like the pro investor that's like, I never knew how to deal with those? Or is it the newbie that's coming out of the woodwork that's just going to go right into the dirty deed stuff? Or like, who is it?
Well, I have a really high level of accountability. Like there are some coaches out there that I think are crummy and they're bad, and they'll help you up your credit card limit to scan in for this program. Yeah. And it's some 65-year-old, or no, that's not the right age, like 85-year-old grandma who's retired. You know, or some dude who just retired from the railroad. He's in his 60s. Like, they got no business doing this unless they're mega driven. That's not the right answer. So we don't look for people like that. We're looking, typically, the right person is someone who's already in real estate or a full-time business owner, not in any employment status anywhere. They've already got exposure to real estate. They kind of know how it works. That way we're not having to teach the basics. We're taking people from good to better. Yep. That's really our best candidate. But shockingly enough, I'll tell you this story about my program manager. Came into my office a couple weeks ago and was like, this guy said he'd sell me his property for this price. And I'm like, what in the heck, Shelly? What are you talking about? You're supposed to be like, you're a program manager. You're not an acquisition person. She's like, well, I listened to some of your webinars and listened to your coaching thing that one day, and you said to call people on delinquent tax list and make them low offers. So I did. I'm like, I'm shocked this happens. She's from the social work world. Like, so that deal didn't work, but she called me on Sunday again and said, this guy said he'd take this much. Long story short, the house is on the appraisal district value for $250,000. She contracted him with $62,500. We got an appraisal from a realtor for $175,000 as is. And it was 2 days before the tax sale. One owner, literally no title problems. He was just going through some weird stuff in his life, quit paying his taxes, and kind of just giving up on things.
Yep.
But the point is, Shelly's from the social work world. She's a program manager. She has not even had training in our program. She just overheard stuff in the office, and monkey see, monkey do, and she snagged a deal.
Yeah.
So after we've seen stuff like that, we've considered letting people. Now we're looking more of a personality profile to let in and not just an experienced real estate investor, because if you meet, there's a personality test that more or less will identify certain characteristics. And if you got those characteristics, we say, okay, we'll bet our reputation on you, because I don't want a bunch of people coming through here not doing well and talking shit about us. So yeah. that's who it's for.
It's hard. I mean, I've coached new investors for a long time. I have mostly work with a lot of pro level investors now. And
Isn't that better?
It's easy to take somebody from 20 to 50 deals a year than from 0 to 1. Because it's a lot of mindset stuff. You haven't seen it work yet, and once you've seen it, then you kind of get ravenous. And so, I don't know. If it's interesting to see if we can talk about the personality stuff offline. If it's like truly a personality, or I've kind of found it's where somebody is in life. Like, how hungry are they? Are they like motivated to like make shit happen, or are
That's a good point.
Are they comfortable? And I think even for a lot of people that are well off, I mean, there's a lot of people in corporate America that are not far from, like, if they were to lose their job, they're a couple of paychecks away from destitute, but they but they could become really driven if that happens, right? And there's some people that are just way too comfortable with where they are.
It's an interesting spin on it.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it.
How you measure that. Like, how motivated are you? People will always say they're motivated, but when it comes down to doing the work, are they actually going to do the work?
I don't know. Here's how I'm doing it. Everyone that's in the program already or has been in it, I'm basically giving them a $100 gift card if they'll take a certain personality test. It's I can't remember what this thing is called. It's a high level one, apparently.
Predictive index? Is it? PI?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to run everybody through that, 'cause it's relatively quick.
Yep.
And then I know the people that were the most successful and the least successful. And if we can see commonalities with them, then we're going to say that's the personality. That's what we're considering next. At the end of the day, our goal is to keep it a good bunch of quality operators that I know I can get to success for reputational reasons and success reasons, you know?
Yeah. I think some of it is like, from what I understand, your program, it's a systematic approach. Like, there's a process for how you evaluate those things. I think for me, like a lot of us that have come across dirty deeds before, you're just like, sounds like a lot of work, and I don't have a process for that.
Bingo.
Like, if the title company doesn't tell me what to do, like, I don't know what to do. But once somebody has an SOP or a process or tells you these are the roles, the attorney, the genealogist, whatever, that can do those things, you're like, oh, this is like it's a repeatable process, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
I tell people in coaching calls in the beginning, I have hardly ever seen a person who showed up and did the prescription and didn't get the same outcome. When people show up and didn't follow the rules, they say they want to tweak this to their opinion or they think this, things start to go haywire. Show up, be like the military. Monkey see, monkey fucking do. And I promise you're going to get your money out at the end. I'm very careful to say this, but there are a few times where I slipped and said, if you do prescription as said and you don't make your money out, I'll give it back to you at the end. And I know I shouldn't be saying that, but there are a few times I've slipped and I'm like, God, I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. It does come down to people taking action for sure.
That's it,
Yeah. Hey, if folks want to learn more about you, I know you've got a new podcast, you do a bunch of stuff on social media. You put a lot of great content out.
Thank you.
If they want to kind of follow along or connect in some way, where can they go?
If folks want to get a hold of me, go straight to Instagram. My name is Logan Fullmer. Type that in and you'll find me. Also YouTube, you'll find me on Dirty Deeds. It's a podcast on my Logan Fullmer YouTube page. Simple answer is go to Google, put in Logan Fullmer, and you'll find everything you need. We work really hard to stay connected to people. We answer emails, we answer DMs. We got a team of us doing it, so we're there for you.
Awesome. We'll add the links down below for folks to connect with you. So
sweet.
Excited to see your continued growth, man. Great to have you in the office here. Appreciate you coming up.
No doubt. It's been fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff. Everybody, there's a lot of ways to make money, and sometimes you just got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. So if you've kind of gotten complacent or lazy, there's probably a lot of deals that you're stepping right over, and you don't even know it. So make sure you're following Logan. He's got some great stuff going on. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.